Um, Looks like it's still happening. So we'll go ahead and record the show, and and I'll upload it to the page. We tried to do this live, everybody, but Facebook is not letting us go live through Zoom. So um, we'll just record and upload it. And if you have any questions, put them in the post below, and we will answer them in the comment section. But we wanted to come and first of all, thank you again for everyone that's listening to the podcast, for everyone that's sharing the podcast. Um, Keep sharing and keep listening, because without you, we know there would be no show. And you uh, have, up until this point, have exceeded our expectation. So what we're going to start doing is, in between podcast shows, is come do some live shows to discuss what happened, and to discuss also the information in each podcast, answer any questions, clear up any um, information that was probably or is going to be controversial. But yeah, so we'll just go ahead and get started real quick, because we know Breaking Brown is about to break in a few hours and give us a good show tonight. So, episode one, episode one, Reparation Needs Coalition. Um, we also introduced ourselves in that episode, and we talked about how we got started in the ADOS movement, how I and Daud together came up with this podcast. And so we just want to give a little elaboration on that, um, because I wanted to emphasize that we're just everyday people. Most ADOS groups, members, whatever you want to call them, are just everyday people. We're listeners of Yvette and Tone. We're in local chapters, and we're just everyday people that just tired of our circumstance, or um, want to see change in our communities. And we know that it starts with education, and we know that it starts with having good information, and then taking that data and that information to the powers that be to advocate for ourselves, whether that's locally, statewide, nationally. So Daud, as an everyday ADOS person, um, and I decided to start this podcast because I was missing a lot of this information. And I know, like I said in the podcast, that if I was missing it, then other people were missing it as well. And we don't want to miss information, and the information that we uh, do receive, we want to understand it from our perspective, from an ADOS perspective. Um, so with that also being said, how do we select these articles that go in our podcast? Daud, how do you select your articles?
My approach is a combination of where most people are at, and that's where I guess I provide the most commentary. So when I get on Facebook or when I do any general searches, I get to see kind of what's popular, what's being talked about most about, and then I try to hone in on how it's particular to my interest, and or how it's going to impact Black children, and then how it's going to impact Black people generally. And then I offer commentary to connect those things, because we're often left out of popular discussion. Um, and then the other half of my approach is to seek out alternative, non-white domination racist mainstream articles that
Mm-hmm.
directly reflect a lot of our concerns and viewpoints on our reality, and I go to alternative sites from In These Times to the Black Agenda Report, which, when I was out there in the wilderness alone, those are sort of my salvations. Um, and that's pretty much my approach.
Yeah, I appreciate his approach because he I stick mainly, I get Google alerts of articles. I see stuff that people share on Facebook, on and Twitter, social media, and I get articles from those spaces. But Daud goes a little bit deeper, and he gets the alternative. I want to call it the alternative, um, deeper articles that not too many people are talking about, not too many people are taking the angle of or seeing it from the same issue from a different side. And I appreciate the articles that he chooses. We don't. The only thing we do is make sure that we're not choosing the same articles. Other than that, we have freedom to choose what we want to present each episode. So there's no censorship in the sense that um, I'm telling him he can't pick something. We're usually right on topic with what's going on that week in news. So yeah, so we hope that the articles that you're choosing that are ones that maybe you're aware of, but maybe no one's discussed it, or maybe you just saw the title and we came in and gave you a little bit more information about what's going on in that article. So that's how we choose our articles. Our main event in episode 1 was called Reparations, One Necessary Step Toward Black Freedom. It was a class.org article, and I had we had chose this article in a test show previous to episode 1, and we said we got to bring it and start off episode 1 with reparations. Class.org does appear to support reparations for ADOS, but at the same time, they also want reparations for other disenfranchised groups, So as we've stated in I think episode 2, we're not against supporting other people's groups or other groups' rights to fight for their right, but our claim is specific to ADOS. So that's where we gave a little bit of pushback in the commentary on this article. When we choose a main article to interview, we 99.9% is exactly how it was written in the article, and the questions are what we are proposing towards that article. So we'll let the article say what's going to say, but in the commentary is where we do our pushback, we question, we try to correct the writer and let them know, you either didn't give us no information, or the information that you said is incorrect, or it doesn't speak to the ADOS life that we wanted to. Is there if you have questions about episode 1, leave them in the comment section below. Sorry, this can't be live, guys. And then, Daud, is there anything you want to add on episode 1?
Pretty much where we were at in the episode itself. I liked the gentleman's argument. It was very good, very particular to our particular justice claim. Where he went a bit of astray was an attempt to incorporate other groups in a mutual struggle, which I believe sincerely weakens such an attempt because it makes it more susceptible to being amalgamated into other interest groups and their interests, so as not to detract from them. So I'm saying this from another angle. So as not to detract from other people and their legal justice claims, I think it's hazardous that we would climb into a joint coalition to elicit all of us receiving the same claim, because it can't. And I think that's a very simple argument from another angle. that we voiced during our commentary on that interview of the article.
Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, guys, that's episode 1, and we really thank you for supporting that show, that podcast show, and sharing it with everyone. On to episode 2. I just wanted to. This one was called Gentrified Myself Out of a Job. In our personality piece, we spoke about, is ADOS controversial? Daud said yes. And so I just want him to elaborate a little bit on why he said yes. He did touch on it a little bit, but I just want him to go a little bit deeper because we're going to be controversial, guys, because we're fighting for something that nobody wants to give us. So, Daud, why did you say yes on ADOS being controversial?
I can pick 2 approaches. One would be historically, particularly from the survivors of enslavement perspective. Every time we have vied for both our rights and our just due, there's always been a response from the dominant society that it's controversial. Everything from peaceful marches even to rebellions, almost categorically, they've been viewed from a standpoint that they're all violent. They're all automatically anti-white. No, it's a stance against injustice, often exerted by white domination racist forces. So anytime, whether it be the Garvey movement, whether it be the peace movements of SCLC and other movements, they're always seen as anti-white, always seen as some level of violence. Wording is associated with the goals, even up to the Black Lives Matter movement, which was formed out of the constant and injustice stances that Black death was reigning across the nation. The movement I've seen in a recent video, one of my alternative news sources, dominated by white opinion, even in various documentaries that white producers, even in their attempts at unifying people not to be, or supporting people not to be separated by race, would leave things like the Black Lives Matter movement and try to indicate that it's for violence. So all these clips in the video I saw, in the documentary I saw, were of rebellion across the nation, things that Black Lives Matter wasn't even involved in, but they bent over backwards to associate Black Lives Matter with something violent, and an automatic hatred of whites for the sake of being white, that they bent over backwards to include images that had absolutely nothing to do with the Black Lives Matter movement. And when they did have something to do with Black Lives Matter movement, the violent scenes that were shown were as a result of police brutalizing protesters at those scenes. So that's another indication as to controversy. They will either always respond to our stances as controversial, and sadly, too many among us will be scared away out of concerns that whites will see what we're doing as controversial. And so it's just a part of the game of being an overwhelmingly historically despised group, as it attempts to gain redress and take a stand against injustice.
Yeah. So I mean, we're going to be seen as controversial, you know, even if we're right for what we're fighting for, we're still going to be seen as controversial. And Daud gave a great example historically of what that meant, all the way up until present day. So our main event in episode 2 was an article called "Representative Joyce Beatty Gentrified Her Way into Political Trouble." And the gist of when we interviewed this article, we focused on what she did prior to and up to getting into Congress, the things that she did to reach that status that she was at. I mentioned that I voted for her automatically which I did prior to ADOS. I I voted Democrat because I thought that's what I'm black. I don't believe in Republican anything. So I'm gonna vote whoever is the first, whoever's black, and then whoever is a Democrat. That's how it went prior to ADOS. I thought that meant something. It was a lot of symbolism voting, and so I brought that up in episode 2. The irony of Joyce Beatty and any black politician who just idly sits by and think that them accepting revitalization grants, anything that is taking away property from the low income families, and then people turning it around and giving it and gentrifying the neighborhoods. Ironically, they are putting themselves out of their own jobs, because once those neighborhoods get gentrified, the gentrifiers do not vote for your black. They don't vote for you. They vote for some change. They vote for AOCs. They will vote for Morgan Harper, which we support because she supports us. She supports reparations. So people with better ideas, people that they see can, the gentrifiers will vote you out, and you help them to vote you. It's like you helping them lose your own job. You know what I mean? And we pointed out that Joyce Betty did some bad dealings in the Columbus area, where she helped gentrify downtown Columbus. Not just her, along with our mayor at the time. Then, of course, the surrounding areas of downtown is our neighborhood. So those were the next to come on board and be gentrified. Ironically, all those neighborhoods that she helped gentrify, she's fighting right now for her life to stay in Congress, because those people want change. Those people want change. What did you think of that, our main article for episode 2?
In the discussion area, the commentary area, you handle that so expertly. I'm still shut up, and I know there's a lot of people out there, some who know me would say that's a rare occasion. It does happen rarely. But you said regarding that and your evolution that you shared with the listeners to the podcast about your insights on Miss Beatty and her and her husband's display of the lack of loyalty to the community, I think was superb. So there's nothing more I can say. I will speak generally, though, hitting 2 points. One would be the insights of Claude Anderson, who said earlier on, which was a wake up to me at the time in the early 90s, how Black representation really does not benefit us. And that was really surprising me. I thought to myself that Black representation was a good thing, and that Black representation meant that people were doing good for Black community. But he really forced me to really take a closer look at that time as to what was happening. And I would say in being both nice and understanding, that a lot of our representatives who probably did attempt to do right by us got the FBI investigation, got undermined by interlopers who were ultimately doing the bidding of outside people, were people that also got stifled by the democratic process through parliamentary procedures that undermined them when they were trying to do things for our community. At the same time, they were given free rein to do other things for other communities. At the same time, culminating into what I believe is the second part of what I want to say, is what happened as a result of the Bill Clinton-Al Gore ascendancy to the Democratic leadership nationally, in that they undermined the coalition that had been established by Jesse Jackson's runs for the presidency, and they created a differently dynamic where people were no longer beholden to that Black-white coalition that Jesse Jackson had created, but they were given wholeheartedly to finance capital. And so that's where I believe the shift came, that we as a group of citizens did not adapt to. That when that took place, we could, besides what Dr. Claude Anderson was telling us, we could no longer just rely on a black face in a high place. Literally,
Right.
they either got investigated out of office or undermined through their efforts, or they capitulated. They became the ability to acquire as much donations from finance capital and the newer startup technologies as possible to maintain their political stances, but they also had to advocate for things that did not benefit our group. And I think since the Bill Clinton and Al Gore ascendancy in creating the Democratic Leadership Council, that was the time we needed to regroup and change our approach. And I believe the approach that the ADOS lineage movement is now on is the one that we should have done back in the at the latest, at the late 90s. But we are in a lot of ways playing catch up because we did not do those things. And Joyce Beatty and her husband were just stepping into a norm going into the 2000s as a means of initial wealth accumulation rather than community representation.
All right, thank you. So our last segment of episode 2, we introduced Voices of ADOS, and we showcase a local voice here in our ADOS Columbus group by the name of TJ Gardner. And that was actually my first time interviewing somebody ever. So
You're like a pro.
so TJ and I, along with 5 other people and our leader Mark Stevenson, just one day met up at Donato's Pizza and said, "Hey, let's start ADOS Columbus." And she was one of the very first founding members of ADOS Columbus, and so I wanted to get her perspective. I think she wasn't feeling good that day, but she came through anyway and did her thing. And I want to extend an invitation to anyone that's is ADOS, an ally or a friend that wants their voice to be heard, and we can share it on our podcast. All you got to do is go to our website, articlesofados.com. There's a button on the right side that says send a voice message. Just click on that, click the start, go somewhere quiet, and then hit the start recording button. And you can record up to 5 minutes of anything you want to say that you feel that you want to share with the ADOS community. And we'll add it in our Voices of ADOS segment. You don't have to be a scholar, a doctorate. You don't have to have a degree to share your voice. It's everyday people like me and Daud that's just like, I don't know if we know more than what we think we know. So get on there, share your views. Another way that you can have your voice heard is just send us a tweet, tag us in a tweet, Voices of ADOS, hashtag Voices of ADOS or something like that. But yeah, Voices of ADOS, hashtag Voices of ADOS. We'll get that. I'll get that. Tag us in it, and then we can also share your tweet. If you got a post on Facebook that you want us to, you wrote up something on Facebook, send it. You can send it in a group messenger or send us each a message. Like, hey, can you put this in the Voice of ADOS? It doesn't have to be vocal. It could me or Daud will read it for you if you don't want your voice on, or if you want to be anonymous, just let us know. But we want your voices to always be a part of our podcast. So that was episode 2. I hope you enjoyed episode 2. Episode 3 is on the way. It's on the way. So you want to look for that every Thursday morning. It'll be, sitting there waiting for you guys. You got any questions about episode 2? Leave them down below. We'll answer them. Anything you want to add before we go, Daud?
No, you handled it perfectly.
All
Looking forward to
right.
the questions.
Yeah. Please ask us questions. Let us know. Give us some feedback. Is the volume too low on the episodes? Is it too high? Y'all gotta let us know. Am I yeah? Do I talk too much? Does Daud talk too much? You gotta let us know. We're gonna talk though. We gotta talk. That's what the part of the podcast. But we try to even it out a little bit. He go, I go. I go, he go. So we bounce off each other like that. So give us some feedback on the actual technical parts of the show. We want to make sure it's sounding right. We want to make sure, it's not too loud, it's not too low. That's my main goal, is to have it, I edit. There's no professionals behind the scene doing this for us. As you can see, we're not live because I don't know what I'm doing. Or my machine here is, my laptop is just too old to handle going live. So we want to thank you for being listeners of Articles of ADOS.
Really, thank you.
And yeah, and we look forward to bringing you countless amounts of content, hoping we can educate. At least you didn't hear about one article. Hopefully, the whole show can educate you on what's going on around you, because there's a lot going on.
And in addition to that, hopefully, this also spurs your soul and spirit to become activated within the movement to make a difference in our society, in our countries, and in our world. Thank you. Please,
Yeah.
please do so.
Yes, get activated. Get activated. Join a local ADOS group, or whatever group that is working towards our ADOS getting reparations, working towards a Black agenda, whatever that group may be. If you're in the NAACP in your local area, Project Takeover. Let them know what's going on. This ADOS agenda. What's going on here? We ain't people of color. We ain't doing that. So, yeah. So that's it for this first live recorded show here, and it will be up on in the group page as soon as I can get it uploaded, guys. All right, see you guys Thursday when episode 3 drops. Share information in the Articles of ADOS group, and yeah, see you. And then we'll discuss episode 3 on Sunday at 8 p.m. All right, peace, fam.